Thanks for tuning in to the Football Talk Squadron. I'm Dutch, and this is week 16 of the NFL season. Getting the episode recorded before we do Thursday Night Football tonight of Rams Seahawks. Go through each of the games like usually do. Talk about last week, sort of, especially as we're getting closer to the playoffs. You know, some other teams got eliminated, namely the Chiefs were eliminated this past week, but we'll go through each of the games, talk about them, and go from there. It is going to be a solo episode. Maul and Pops are out, so it's just me today going into it, and we'll kick it off with Thursday night. Really, it's a colossal game. Rams Seahawks. You take a look at last week, the Rams handled the Lions. It was close. You know, Hutch had the pick early in the game. Lions and Rams were really battling it out in the first half, and then the second half, the Rams took over the game and closed it out, which was a huge win for them in the NFC competition. You're still going head-to-head. I mean, when you look at tonight's game, Rams and Seahawks, if you were to sit back and go, who has a better record, I think everyone goes, oh, it's the Rams. They're tied. They're both 11-3 going into tonight. So from a standpoint of who's the better team, I think a lot of people in their mind have the Rams in that position. Seattle's right there with them. Seattle's played really good football. From an inch, I think the negative connotation to tonight's game, if you are looking at it from a standpoint of why do you doubt the Seahawks, it's Sam Darnold. Like, it's just, we saw this last year with the Vikings. Tremendous beginning part of the season. You know, middle of the season, a lot of people are going, wow, this dude is balling out. And then what happened? They were right at the end, started to fold, get into the playoffs, lose. It was just like this immediate fell off a cliff there at the end of the season. And I think that's what people are worried about this season with them. So now Seattle, you sit back, you look at them, they have a really good win over the Colts. The Colts are not a bad football team. Now, when I say a really good win, it's not as good as the Rams over the Lions, because when you watch the Colts-Seahawks game, Phillip Rivers really was not taking any deep shots. They had a very specific game plan, which was let's throw the ball, keep it under 20 yards down the field, and hand the ball off to Jonathan Taylor. They kept it competitive, and honestly, Seattle had a really good plan there at the end of the game, called timeouts. You know, the Colts made a 60-yard field goal. They got the ball back, drove right down, kicked their own field goal, won. Hats off to them. They're going to get tested severely tonight in terms of a passing offense from Stafford. You look at Puka Nacua. Right now, Devontae's I would say at best is going to be limited. The Rams are still a tremendous offensive team. Defensively, I was surprised of how the Lions were able to really take advantage of them in the first half. Rams defense figured it out in the second half. I just look at tonight's game. I think for Seattle to stay competitive, it's not so much Sam Darnold. I think that's the easy answer. For me, it's JSN. If JSN can have a really good night, then Seattle can win the game. If he's a problem, just no one can guard him, great chance for them to stay in the game. If he doesn't, you'd have to take the Rams. And for me tonight, I'm on the Rams bandwagon for tonight against Seattle. I know the game's in Seattle. I just look at Sam Darnold's track history in terms of how he's fared at the end of the season. You take a look at just the health and the loaded roster that the Rams have. I still think it's going to be a great game. Right now, the spread is only 1.5 in Seattle's favor. I just like the Rams. So it's hard for me to pick against the Rams, and that's why I got them tonight. Then Saturday, we got two games. We got the Eagles at the Commanders and Packers at the Bears. Eagles at Commanders. For Philly, all they have to do is not lose out the rest of the season and have Dallas win out the rest of the season, and they take the NFC East. That's going to happen on Saturday. The Commanders, injuries and really age. What's nuts is, just bear with me for a comparison. The Commanders are eerily similar to the Chiefs in terms of performance this year in why it happened. Offensive line, huge issues for both the Chiefs and the Commanders. And then age. You look at the guys that the Commanders have on the defensive side of the football. Bobby Wagner, really good player, don't get me wrong. But from a standpoint of, is he probably gone next year? Absolutely. Like, they're paying guys that are advanced in age, and the age is starting to show. They had a really sort of I don't want to call it a miracle year last year, but things fell in the right place. The Bears, Stevenson decided to not play a position of cornerback for a Hail Mary. Jalen Hurts gets hurt in the game, and they ended up having to play Kenny Pickett and beat him. There were things that opened the door for the Commanders to get into the playoff, and they had amazing. They ended up beating Baker, going up and beating Detroit, get all the way to the NFC Championship game. I don't want to call it a fluke, but from a standpoint of, they didn't have to deal with the injuries. They were a year younger. Jaden Daniels didn't get hurt. All these different combinations went into it, and everything that went into it last year has not went their way this year. That's why they're 4-10. Philly's -7. I like Philly in the game. The colder it gets, the more they should be turning to Saquon. And also, the more that these games matter, give the ball to Saquon, especially come playoffs. That for me, that is the recipe for the Eagles to find success offensively. I know a lot's going to be made over Jalen Hurts and the passing offense. I don't really put it on Jalen. I really put it on an offensive coordinator. We know what the offense is capable of. The idea that Jalen Hurts has just regressed to the point that they need to find a new quarterback, that's not the solution. It's an offensive coordinator. Comes down to that. Then huge game. Saturday night, Packers at the Bears. Packers, you sit back and you think about all the things that you could have possibly go wrong, and that's what happened against the Broncos for the Packers. Lose Christian Watson, lose an offensive lineman, and then the huge key loss, lose Micah Parsons. Micah was having a very, very good year again, and he was a problem down the stretch. It's why the Packers were really competitive. I mean, they were winning that game in Denver for most of it up until that injury. His loss is going to be monumental for the Packers, and we're going to find out come Saturday night as my phone or my watch is trying to tell me about Micah Parsons being hurt. I sit back and I look at it for the Bears. Caleb has progressed tremendously this year under Ben Johnson. The offense is really starting to shine. You think about the offensive weapons they have: Rome Odunze, DJ Moore, Luther Burden, Cole Kmet, Loveland, Swift. The offense is starting to click. Do I still think that there's flaws? Yes, the defense can't get a pass rush. That's a huge piece, especially when you go into a game against the Packers. You really have to put pressure on Jordan Love. I think Jordan Love against Denver showed what his biggest flaw is, which is he's sort of Favre-esque in that he's going to cost you the game at some point. The Packers relied on their defense to keep the game close despite Love's flaws. Once Micah left the game, it was over. You could just tell it completely deflated that team, and that's what I'm really interested to see Saturday night is what Packers come out. The Packers still have a great chance to go to the playoffs. You sit back, and I'm pulling up right now the NFL's playoff picture. The Packers are still in it. They're still a part of the playoff picture. This isn't over by any long shot in terms of who is going to represent the NFC. Now, you sit back as a Packer fan, Rams are number 1, Bears are number 2, Eagles 3, Bucks 4, Seahawks 5, Niners 6, Packers 7. So the Packers are right on that verge. Who are they really competing with? They're competing with the Lions. That's really the team that they're playing against right now. The other 3 teams that are in the running outside, or the other 2 teams with the Lions for the on the bubble, is the Panthers and the Cowboys. Cowboys have to have the Eagles lose out. Not going to happen. And the Panthers had their chance last week. It's going to come down this week with their game against Tampa Bay of who's going to take control of that division. The Lions need the Packers to stumble. So for the Packers, it is a huge game. They control their destiny come Saturday night. Green Bay's 1.5 favorite. It's in Soldier Field. It's in Chicago. I know if Pops was on the podcast right now, he would go, this is the key game. This is the game that is going to not so much determine whether or not the Packers or the Bears win a Super Bowl or any of that, but from a standpoint of, have we progressed to the point in this season that we can dethrone the Packers? Can we beat these guys when we should? They're down offensive stars. They're down defensive stars. We should win this game. Packers are favored. Give me the Bears. I like the Bears in the game. I want them to come out and make a statement. You know, for them, that you are competing for the NFC North crown. Division champs, take it. I like the Bears in the game. Give me the Bears to come out of Saturday night with the win. Going into Sunday, Bills-Browns. Bills minus 10.5 against the Browns. The issue I have with the Bills is what happened last week. The Bills are down 21-0 against the Patriots. I'm literally texting my buddy who we go to the games for the past 2 years, and I sent him the meme of SpongeBob getting up that was like, all right, I'm going to head out. And when it went 21-0, I was like, yo, dude, like, why am I watching this? I'm just going to watch something else. This is hard to watch. And he's like, I'm taking a nap. Well, then, sure enough, the Bills come all the way back, and I sent him a message. I'm like, yo, dude, we're winning right now. And he goes, I'm not going to lie to you. I literally took a nap, and I told him, I was like, you need to start taking more naps during games. We have to test this theory. Well, Josh Allen scores. Very next play, Travion Henderson takes it to the house. I get another text. I'm going back to bed. I was luckily able to send him a message at the end of the game that said, hey, man, wake up. We won. But I say all that to say, from a Bills standpoint, they're capable. Like, they beat the Patriots. Like, you sit back and you look at the AFC playoff picture right now, and you go, number one team's the Broncos, two's Pats, three's Jags, four Steelers, Chargers, Bills, Texans in order. Teams on the bubble, Colts and Ravens. From that standpoint, you go, the Bills can beat anyone. Like, they really can. I really do believe that when you take a look at both sides, whether it be the Rams from the NFC, whoever it is on the NFC side, and any team in the AFC, the Bills are capable of beating. The Bills are capable of going to a Super Bowl this year. At the same time, the Bills are capable of losing to anyone. Good news for them is the Browns have sort of come back to earth with Shador. You know, if you put pressure on a rookie QB, he's going to make mistakes the majority of times. That's what happened. You take a look at last week for the Browns, they struggled offensively. Why? When you get pressure on a young quarterback, it tends to happen that mistakes are going to happen. The Bears did a good job of that. They really limited him. They held him to 3 points. Bears won 31-3 against the Browns last week. So from that standpoint, I like the Bills to just control the football. Give the ball to James Cook. Let him run. Let Josh Allen do what Josh Allen does. And the only thing that Bills fans need to be concerned with is just keep Myles Garrett away from Josh Allen. I understand he's probably going to get a sack or two. It'd be great if he didn't get any. But he's coming for the record. He's trying to beat TJ Watt's record. He's only got 3 games left to do it. I just care about the health and to get another dub. I like the Bills in the game. I would take him with the 10.5-point line. Not so much because I expect them to dominate Cleveland's defense, but because I expect the Bills' defense to be able to control the Browns' offense. That's more about what that says. Next game, Chargers-Cowboys. Chargers, huge win, go into Arrowhead, not only beat the Chiefs, but then knock the Chiefs out of the playoffs due to the fact that the Bills then beat the Patriots. So Chargers are sitting there, division right now leaders. I mean, they're going, or not division leaders. They are in the wild card. The Broncos are in the division lead, but the Chargers have the team that Harbaugh has built. Pops called this, and I think even Maul did, that we all were sort of saying it, that, look, we think Harbaugh is going to get this team to compete. I just sit back and they are, but at the same time, they do have flaws. Like, you can't watch the Chargers team and have complete faith that at the end of the day, these guys are going to win a Super Bowl. They're not that team. I think the injuries on the offensive line have hurt them a lot. From a standpoint of offensive, like it shows with Herbert. He's getting hit a lot. He gets a lot of pressure, but he is an amazing quarterback. He makes the throws that you need him to make when you need him to make them, which you can't say about every quarterback. So I just sort of sit back and look at this game. Dallas is -2.5. How I expect the Chargers to attack the Cowboys is by running the football. Amari and Hampton's back. You're going to feed him, allow him to run. From a Chargers defensive standpoint, can you slow down Dallas's offense, which has been very susceptible the last few weeks? Just a few weeks ago, we're sort of sitting back like, if somehow Dallas gets in the playoffs, could they make a run? And you were like, yeah, I sort of think they could. Once they lost to JJ, everyone was like, okay, right back down to earth. I don't think this team's as good as we thought they were. Dallas is -2.5. I like the Chargers in the game. I like the Chargers to come in and handle their business. I know they just got a big win over the Chiefs, but I will say that this team, led by Harbaugh, feels a lot different from a standpoint of old Chargers teams that seem to crumble down the stretch. Last week's game was a perfect opportunity for the Chargers to do Chargers things and lose. They didn't. They went in the Arrowhead. They got the win. I like them to go into Jerry's World, get the win on Sunday. Then, next game, Kansas City against the Titans. No Mahomes. That's the other huge news that came out besides the Parsons ACL injury was Mahomes going down with the ACL injury. You hate it to watch a great player get hurt. No one wants to watch a player get hurt. Me and Maul were talking about it on the phone after the game, and he said something that I did want to iterate on this episode, which is in years prior, it seemed like the Chiefs the ball always went their way, whether it was calls on the field, Mahomes heroics, just great catches, the balls, in terms of fumbles, just bouncing the right way, interceptions not being made. You think about like Stephon Diggs getting hit, put it in the breadbasket while Allen drops it. All these little things that just went the Chiefs' way, and none of that went their way this year. Time and time again, it just seemed like they're not getting the calls they usually got. They're losing the advantage in terms of turnovers. Mahomes, the injury bug, huge one. Mahomes is getting hurt. You think about Pacheco, all these guys, they just dealt with it, and especially from the standpoint of their offensive line. And I think this is a great, segment to just talk about this, that it doesn't matter how great of a QB you have. If you cannot protect him, it is going to have negative consequences. And I'm not even talking about the injury. I'm just talking about from the standpoint of offensive efficiency. The Chiefs didn't have it this year. Why? It's because their offensive line was terrible in terms of injuries. Trey Smith gets hurt. Simmons is out for multiple games for personal reasons, then gets hurt. They were bringing in backups who are getting hurt. And it's like when you go through that level of attrition on the offensive line, it is going to have the consequences of costing you football games. It is just so difficult week in, week out to go and block the best players in the world and expect it to not have a negative consequence on your quarterback when you're not having your bona fide starters in. And when they're also just unhealthy. So from a Chiefs standpoint, man, it hurts. Like it sucks watching Mahomes get hurt. You really it's hard to say whether or not he'll even be ready by this time next year, just due to the timing of when he tore his ACLs this late in the season. You don't have a lot of time. It's December. Games are going to kick off in September. You wonder if he's going to be ready. I'm not taking anything away from Mahomes. I think that he is more than capable, and he'll work his absolute rear end off to get ready. It's just about what the body allows. You can't. There are some people that literally I think about Jack Youngblood was playing on a torn ACL. People are different, and their bodies handle things differently. We'll see how Mahomes recovers. I hope nothing but the best for him. But in terms of the game, Gardner Minshew is going to get the start against Cam Ward and the Titans. Kansas City's -3. What do you see out of the Chiefs? That's my question. Do you see a team that, now that they've been eliminated, folds the rest of the way, or do you see an Andy Reid coach team come in and go, look, we're going to finish out the season the way that we want it to. We're going to win these games. We're not going to lay down. We're not going to give up. We're going to go out here and fight. I like the Chiefs' defense against Cam Ward's offense. Cam Ward has played phenomenal football for the position that he's in. As bad as the Chiefs line is, the Titans is even worse. For as bad and as old as the Chiefs wide receivers are, the Titans are even worse. For as bad as Kansas City's run game it has been this year, the Titans are even worse. For as, inefficient as the Chiefs defense has been this year, the Titans are even worse. Cam has kept them in games, and he has kept fighting. I think the Titans have found their quarterback. They need to get a lot of pieces around him, but he's still out there competing. I saw he was literally running for his life and threw a rope and hit his wide receiver right in the chest, and dude dropped it. Like, you feel awful for the guy because he is clearly out there trying to win. Can't get it done with that team. I look at the Chiefs. They still have all the talent on both sides of the football against this Titans team. I like Kansas City. I know they're -3. Give me Kansas City with the points. Then Bengals-Dolphins. I picked the Dolphins because I thought, man, going into Pittsburgh, based upon what I saw with the Steelers, just all these different things, the only thing you need to tell me is, hey, it was going to be below 40 degrees, and I go, oh, well, then I should pick the Steelers. What's funny enough is that's what I did in our little side group chat in terms of we have like a weekly picks. I changed it from the Dolphins to Steelers. At least I hit on that. The Dolphins are benching Tua. They're going to go with Quinn Ewers for this week's game against the Bengals. Joe Burrow really laid an egg. The whole Bengals team did against the Ravens. Bengals were sort of reminding you of Dallas in terms of like, man, is this a team that anybody wants to compete with? Joe Burrow's back. They're slinging the football. They look great. Then they go out and the Ravens and just get blanked. I sit back and look at this game. I don't know what you're going to get out of Quinn Ewers. And it's not from a Quinn Ewers standpoint. It's more from a McDaniel standpoint. I don't like the offense. To me, the Dolphins, don't get me wrong, Tua has a lot on his shoulders in terms of blame. Tua has not played well. Whether that's the concussions that he suffered throughout the years that's not letting it happen, I put it more on just sort of Tua himself. We've seen very rare instances where Tua has looked phenomenal, but for the vast majority of time, I would say he is average to below average in terms of an NFL quarterback. We haven't seen it out of him, and I think they're in the right mindset in order to bench him. Like, I'm sorry, you're not playing to the potential that you need to, and nowhere close. We have to give it someone else a look. We are paying you too much money to play to the level that you're playing. I agree with it. I think they're setting Quinn Ewers up for a failure. Lucky for him, he's playing the Bengals defense, but I still think that when I look at this game, Cincinnati's -4.5, I like the Bengals in the game. I just don't like the Dolphins coaching staff. Like, for me, the wholesale change needs to happen from the top, which they already did fire their GM. It needs to now happen with the head coach, and they need to start from scratch. They need to figure out who they can bring in that's going to draft well, prioritize picks, prioritize building a good team. The very next question those guys are going to have to ask when you bring him in is, what do we do with Tua? Do we get rid of him? Do we go in a different direction? That is the ultimate question for the Dolphins, but I think they need to do it with a new head coach. But for this game, give me the Bengals -4.5. Next, Jets-Saints. Jets, absolute walking dumpster fire. Saints come off a huge win against the Panthers. Back-to-back weeks that the Saints end up beating the Bucs, then they end up beating the Panthers. You're sort of like, are the Saints the best team in the division? It doesn't matter. They're already eliminated. The only two teams left for the NFC South are the Bucs and the Panthers, who we'll talk about here in a minute. As much as I gave Tyler Shuck crap at the beginning of the year, he's played pretty well. He's played well. And let me tell you, my man's tough. He was running some quarterback draws and was getting absolutely lit by the Panthers. And on the final drive, took off running, got a personal foul, roughing the passer on the slide that put him in great field goal position for the win. So you sit back and you go, he's doing what he needs to do in order to find success on the field and get wins. Can't hate on a guy for that. I look at this game and I go, Jets defense is awful. Offense is even worse. Saints have been competitive in just about every game this year. Give me the Saints. I like the Saints over the Jets. Then next you get the Vikings, Giants. Vikings coming off the big win against Dallas. The Giants losing a game that really didn't expect with them playing the Commanders. I think everyone sort of leaned into it going, they should really throw down on the Commanders with Mariota, and were lost. The first half, it was 22-7. The Giants were able to come back a little bit in the second half, and they made it 29-21 at the end of the game. But from a standpoint of, was it competitive? No. I think this speaks to the fact that Jackson Dart's young. You fired a head coach. You have different guys coaching different things. Everyone's trying to make an impression of why they should be the next head coach. The Giants have hope for next year. You're going to get Cam Scatterboo back healthy. You're going to get Neighbors back healthy. You are going to get a good draft pick of which you can use for an offensive line. You can use wide receiver. You can use defense. The Giants will have the pick in order to decide how they want to transform into the future. I think that they're going to stick with Jackson Dart. This year, however, you're almost to the point that I like having Dart play, but the second he really starts getting beat up, I go sub in and put in Jameis. Why? Because why risk a guy and let him catch a beating? The Vikings defense has played well, and J.J. McCarthy had a good game last week. The problem for the Vikings is J.J.'s inconsistencies, is he can't string together multiple games playing really well. That's my only fear going into this game. And if I had seen a defensive line for the Giants that had played better against the Commanders, I'd be more willing to sort of fade the Vikings and pick the Giants in this case. The issue is the Giants just seem like they don't care anymore. Give me the Vikings to come out in front of this game and get the win. Then the battle for the NFC South crown. Bucks go to the Panthers. Bucks are -3. Here is the thoughts to this game. And I will start off by saying this is not because I have picked the Panthers for the playoffs. And by saying that, I'm going to take the Panthers. Here's why. The Buccaneers, you look at, I'd say the first 6 games of the season, you would go, this team is a Super Bowl competing team. Who wants to play these guys? If you have watched the last 6 weeks of football, you go, this team is playing every game like they are trying to lose. I mean, they lost against the Falcons. They have lost against the Saints. They have found time and time again, for as good as they were in the first half of the season, finding ways to win. This second half of the season, they have looked awful on both sides of the football. I sit back and look at the Panthers. The Panthers competed against the Saints, and the Saints are not a bad football team. They have played far better this year than I think a lot of people ever would have given them credit for. We were sort of looking at them being categorically probably one of the worst teams in history going into the season, and they haven't played bad. I just sort of sit back and look at this game, and I go, based upon the trends, I think that Bryce Young and the Panthers have played better over the last few weeks compared to the Bucs. I like that to continue. I think that just sort of the minor consistencies that the Panthers have will shine in this game. I know Tampa Bay is a -3.5 favorite. Give me the Panthers to upset the line. I like the Panthers in the game. Going into the afternoon games, this one's a great one. I mean, who would have thought that going into Week 16, I would be saying Jags-Broncos is probably one of the games to watch of the weekend. It is a battle of two defenses that I think are vastly, I don't want to say underrated, but we just don't talk about them enough of how good they are on both sides of the front. Going against quarterbacks that you sort of wonder who is going to rise to the occasion. Is Bo Nix going to be the guy to lead the Broncos to victory, or is Trevor Lawrence going to have a game that he had like last week where you sit back and go, this was the guy that we picked with the number 1 pick? I sit back and look at this game from a standpoint of pressure. And who do I think can create the pressure? Both teams can. Whose quarterback is better equipped to deal with it? I really think Bo Nix is. I think that Bo has a slight edge in terms of running the football and also throwing on the run. I've seen too many times in the past where Trevor has struggled with that, especially pressure. I like Denver in the game, but when I tell you that I really think that this could be a coin toss, and I really think that you're probably going to end up seeing this matchup play out again in the playoffs just based upon how both of these teams are playing. Whoever wins this game, I think ends up probably losing if they face again in the playoffs. Just from the standpoint of that, you got to see him again. I like the Broncos in this game. I think they come out of Mile High Field in Denver with the win. Give me the Broncos. Then the next game, Falcons-Cardinals. Both teams are eliminated. Falcons come off a big win last week. For all you people that drafted Kyle Pitts and had him in the playoffs in your fantasy, hats off. I mean, you finally did it. After 5 years of drafting the dude, you finally drafted him when it mattered and had a dude that balled out in the playoffs. I mean, the fact that that is all, and for the fantasy guys out there, I know that if you play fantasy, you'll understand what I'm saying. If you don't, it will give you maybe some motivation to play fantasy. Or some motivation to not play fantasy. There is nothing worse. This happens every single year. It never fails. That you will have a team that's just stacked. I've got great players. I got all these dudes. I'm in the playoffs. I've been just running train on the league the entire time, just beating everybody. I'm going to win the championship game. And you go in and you play a guy, and sure enough, Kyle Pitts puts up 42 stinking points as a tight end week 1 of the playoffs. And you're like, dude, I ain't beating that. And then none of your stars show up and you end up losing. Like, I can guarantee you there are hundreds, if not thousands, of people who had that experience last week. It's what makes fantasy fun, but at the same time makes it heartbreaking for the guys that just run through the league, get to the playoffs, and then lose. Going into this game, though, from a standpoint of what do I see, Kirk Cousins hasn't played bad. He's played better each and every single week since then. Has he played to this level of being paid what he's getting paid? No. But from a standpoint of are they winning? Yes. It's hard to pick the Cardinals in this game. I think the Falcons defense has really come on strong as of late. I like the Falcons to go into Glendale and get the victory. As we've talked about with the Cardinals, I think this is the last year of Kyler Murray. I think the Cardinals, you sit back and you sort of look at their draft pick. Who are they going to take? That's the real question in terms of, I would say at best, a shaky quarterback class. I think that Mendoza, the Heisman winner, is going to come out. You may see a few other guys come out, namely like your Carson Becks and some other guys. Outside of Mendoza, I think it's a real coin flip. So if you're not sitting there with the number 1 pick, I think there's going to be a lot of questions at what you do with quarterback, which we'll see once all the lineup is set. We'll get into it at the end of the season in terms of sort of draft and what we think going into it. That's always a fun time of the year. But for Cardinals fans, that's sort of where their minds are at right now is we're going to finish out the season, but really where are we going to go at position a quarterback next year? Who's going to be that guy? Where's it coming from? Then next game, Steelers-Lions. Lions got to have it. That's how I'm going to start this off. In Detroit, right now Vegas knows it. Detroit's -7 going against Aaron Rodgers. The Lions have to win this game. If you want to compete for the playoffs, they need the Bears to beat the Packers, and then they got to beat the Steelers. The Lions have to go into this game and win. From a standpoint of the Steelers team that I watched last week that got a victory that was honestly surprising, just after I watched them get manhandled by the Bills, they come in and manhandled the Dolphins. And they did it was after the third, it was 21-3. It wasn't until the fourth quarter that the Dolphins got 12 points. You sort of sit back and you look at the Steelers team. They want to run the football. They want to play action pass. They don't have a ton of offensive talent at the position of wide receiver outside of DK Metcalf and Darnell Washington, who is the best thing I could say is a D10 bulldozer. Like, go look one up. It's, a $10 million bulldozer that will just wreck. You can't stop the thing. Like, once you put that thing in drive, it's going. That's Darnell Washington. Like, my man's 300 plus pounds, and when he caught it, there was like 7 Dolphins trying to bring him down, and it looked like the high schooler that went into an elementary playground and just was playing tag and was just running through kids. It's hard to bring him down, but outside of those two guys, they just don't have the weapons. From an offensive standpoint of the Lions, they do have the weapons. I don't think the Steelers are set to play against this Lions offense in Detroit. I like Detroit to get the win. I also like them to cover -7. I like the Lions in the game. Then Raiders, Texans. When we talk about the worst team in football, it's the Raiders. You can't watch the Raiders and have any sense of joy watching that. I mean, they are a complete and utter train wreck to the point that you really go, is Pete Carroll even going to be the guy next year? Are they going to yet again go in a different direction for a head coach? Just based upon how poorly they've played. The Texans, on the other hand, for as poor as they have started off the season, have just been on fire here the last few weeks. You sit back and you look at the Texans. Last week they destroy the Cardinals. They have been on a 5-game winning streak. They're going to win 6 here. They're going to beat the Raiders. They have the highest spread of the week at 14.5. It's hard not to take them with the spread just based upon how bad the Raiders have looked. The Raiders look absolutely awful. They are worse than the Titans. I am sorry if you live in Vegas and have to watch that. Like, there's nothing worse. I like the Texans to throttle the Raiders in this game. Then Sunday night, Patriots-Ravens. Ravens got to, as I said with the Lions, they got to have a win. The Ravens have to have this win. Vegas thinks they are. Baltimore 3.5. I know the Patriots blew that game to the Bills, but from a standpoint of you look at the Bills offense compared to the Ravens offense, I think we're night and day difference. The Ravens offense looks completely lost. Lamar has not looked anywhere close to his MVP years as of late. He looks like a man that is either A, injured, or B, just, I don't know, like lost. Like he is ineffective with the football. And for that reason, I'm taking the Pats. Like, I don't know why the game's -3 Baltimore outside of the fact that the Ravens have to have the game to stay alive. I just like the Patriots to go into Baltimore and really sort of knock the Ravens out of the playoffs almost. That to me is what I feel like is going to happen. I think Vrabel with the defense is going to be able to shut down Derrick Henry. You look at the Ravens offense, it's really just Zay Flowers and then Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely, who didn't even see a catch last week. I like the Patriots in the game. Give me the Patriots. Then Monday night, the other NFC West team that is sitting right in the middle of the playoffs, 49ers, for all the injuries they've had. Here's the 10-4 49ers going against the 8-6 Colts. Colts really have to have the game in order to just compete they're still in the bubble right now for as good as they started off. Lose Danny Dimes. It was really post that week at Kansas City that you saw the downfall of the Colts begin and get to the level that it's at right now. What do the Colts have to do? They have to open up the offense. The game last week was hard to watch from a standpoint of, was Phillip Rivers efficient with the football? Yes. Yes, I know he threw the pick at the end, but from a standpoint of, did he do what he needed to do in the game up until the interception where it was just, throw it up and try to make a Hail Mary almost? Played well. Had him in the lead. I don't think that's going to work against the Niners. I think the Niners offense is a little bit better than what the Colts went against last week. However, you just don't know what you're going to see. It's another week that Phillip Rivers has gotten preparation with the Colts that helps in terms of just knowing your wide receivers, opening up the playbook, opening up the plays, figuring out what you can, what you can't do. I like the Niners in the game just because it's hard based upon what I saw last week against the Colts to pick them. I think that it will be a competitive game, but from the standpoint of who do I have winning it, give me the Niners. It's hard to pick against them. And that does wrap up week 16. I think the big thing is when you sort of look at from a standpoint of the playoffs, what's the overarching theme? So Broncos, and the Rams are the only two teams that have clinched a spot. When you take a look at from who has the next best chance, 99 percentile, Jags, Pats have it in the AFC. And the Chargers, 99%. The Bills, if they win, have a 99% chance. If the Texans win, they have a 97% chance of making the playoffs. The only team where they win is less than in the 90s is the Steelers at 76%. The Bears on the NFC side, if the Bears win, 94% chance. If the Eagles win, it's greater than 99% chance. If the Bucks win, it's a 95% chance. Seahawks 99, 49ers 99, Packers 99 with a win. Then you start looking at the other teams, and it's like the Lions, even if they win, it's 47%. Panthers, it's 44%, and the Cowboys, it's 2%. Cowboys have to have the Eagles lose out, which, as I said, it's not going to happen against the Commanders. I sort of sit back and look at these games and just go, from a standpoint of which ones do you want to watch? It's Packers, Bears. It's Bucks, Panthers. It's tonight, Rams, Seahawks. I mean, Jags, Broncos. We have great games here in week 16. They're battling for playoff spots. They're battling for seeding. I love it. I think it's going to be a great week for football. But that does wrap up the show. We'll get all the boys on it here soon. We'll go through the college football playoff in terms of who we think is going to come out on top, and then we'll get more into week 17, 18, and then into the playoffs for the NFL. Looking forward to it, but time to pull chalks. We'll see you guys next week.